Sorry. I
That's
already
all
hit
right. Go ahead.
Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Michael Panozzo, sir, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, buddy. I'm doing good. I'm
Happy to
glad
be
to be
home.
back home. Oh man, you have no idea. I the trip seemed like a blur. Um, it seemed like I just left or I was getting ready to get on a flight last minute, and then here I am. I'm back home. So this whole
Well,
year's been like tough,
you've been
Mike.
doing coast to coast, man. Seattle to New Jersey is, you know,
I didn't
that's
even
a
think
pretty
about
good
that,
chunk.
and that was just in the last like 30 days. Now that I think about it, yeah, it's brutal.
Try not to think
Yeah,
about it. You'll be tired.
well, they were both great trips, but I got to tell you, Mike, this last one was pretty special. It's hard for things to like live up to the hype and live up to the billing, but um, SVB Federer playing 10 ball was great. U.S. Open was something pretty special. I love tournaments like this, Mike. It reminds me of like seeing Efren go on the run at the Derby in the one pocket again, just like 2 years ago or whatever it was.
Right, right, right. No, it was a. I was not at the U.S. Open for the first time in ages. Um,
Oh, Emily knew, by the way. So in case you were wondering if she knew whether you weren't or were there. Yeah.
it's just nice to be noticed that you're not there.
Yeah.
It's nice to be conspicuous by your absence. But I watched a lot of it, and it was driving me crazy that I wasn't out there, especially as it got closer to the final, and you're looking at, you know, SVB Federer, that was just crazy. SVB shooting for number 6 was
Yeah.
just insane. Um, yeah, it was great, and I think it's one of those years that can help move the whole event to another plateau in terms of viewership and in terms of
Yeah.
on-site fans. So many people watched it this year and got that feel for what was going on there and how cool it was. Those are the type of years that kind of all of a sudden next year we'll get to this new plateau and it'll stay there for a while and then jump again hopefully. So yeah, it was a great event.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to like capture what's going on there online, whether through a couple of the Matchroom streams or through their great social media feeds or whatever. And but there's nothing like it, and they do an absolutely great job. I love it because it's not like your traditional tournament where it's a grind. Like you can have some evenings, you can have, it's not like a late start, early start in the morning, or late in the evening. So you're there for a
Well,
long
that's
time. You're there for a lot of days, but
right.
it's the give and take of it.
Yeah, well, that's always the best thing about to me about Matchroom events is that they're aired live in the UK on Sky.
Yeah,
So if it's in the US, they're not going to keep people in the UK up till 3 o'clock in the morning, which would be 10 o'clock, US time. So it works out really well if
yeah.
the tournaments are in the US and we can have some evenings.
Be honest with me, Mike. So while you were in Dallas or wherever you were you kind of hoping that it didn't turn out as special as it was because you weren't there? Tell
No,
me, the, tell me, tell me the truth, Mike. Tell me the truth.
no,
Come on,
no.
come on.
This is not about me. I was trying to, you know, I'm always hoping for the best finals, for the best matches, for the most excitement, for the best story. Whether I'm there or not. That's what I'm rooting for because that's what you do as a writer. You root for the stories.
Agreed.
And
Yeah,
there were great ones there. I mean, Neil's making the Final Four. How great was that?
yeah.
Josh knocking on the door again, and Shane shutting him down. Just that was just great stuff. The Mickey Filler match.
Had a lot. It was a really epic. It was a really weighted match in the round of 64, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, and there was so much on the line for both of them. Mickey wins that match; it's pretty much done as far as Moscone Cup goes. And believe me, Josh knew that, and you could tell by Jason's reaction after Josh won. Uh, I think the match after that, when he met him
Yeah.
over on the side, and he shook hands and hugged it out. I mean, Jason was doing that from a Team Europe standpoint, and it was nice to see that he wasn't going to have to use a wild card on Josh Filler. So, yeah, there was just a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces. Made it fun to watch, made it fun to speculate on, things like that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's like everywhere you look, there was just one thing happening over another, and then you look at the scoreboard, and then you start to like analyze in your head, like, oh, if this happens, then this guy's going to move here, and then he's still
Right,
in position here, and then it's like, but the story that everybody wanted to see ended up coming true.
right.
I think a lot of people were rooting for SVB to get number 6, but it wasn't, any less great seeing Federer get number 1. Especially given the year that he has. But Mike, I want to needle a little bit here, Mike, because there was a lot of, and I know it's out of character for me, buddy. I know, trust me. Um, I see a lot of like emphasis on like this triple crown and the 3 majors, and you know what I'm getting at here, Mike. I want to
Yeah,
get your
yeah, yeah.
thoughts on like this really pushing the narrative of get holding the U.S. Open, World Championship, which are majors by the way, but then they
No
throw
doubt.
in the World Pool Masters a part of it, Mike.
Yeah, everybody knows my feelings on the World Pool Masters, which I think is getting closer to. I'm almost okay with it, but I just, when you're trying to talk historic achievements, which a Grand Slam is or a Triple Crown is, I just have a problem with single elimination, 16 player fields, win 4 matches, and you win. I just have a problem with that. I don't care how good that 16-man field is. It's an invitational. This year it wasn't even invitational. It wasn't even the top 16. Well, it's an invitational. It
Oh, it
wasn't
was top. It was. I think it was top 14. Was
14,
it? Yeah,
14
14.
and two
Yeah,
picks. So, to include, now listen, I'm not trying to shortchange Federer at all on
of
what he
course,
did.
of course.
That's a great title, and it's a hard one to win. And he faced Josh in the final, and it was epic and all that. But in historic context, I just have a problem with that event being compared to a big open dog eat dog tournament like these big tournaments. So I just think that they're kind of, in my mind, they're on different levels. Now, is winning all 3 of those in 1 year pretty special? Yeah, hell
For
yeah.
sure, for
But
sure. Yeah.
it's very special in the World Nine Ball Tour universe. Okay, so this is a triple crown. Okay, let's play a game.
I wait. Okay,
Let's
I
play
want
a
to hear your
game.
game.
Let's
Okay.
play a game. Francisco beats Eklund Kachi to win the World 10 ball. And he's holding the World 8 ball, the World 9 ball, the World 10 ball at the same time. Okay, is anybody in the World 9 ball tour going to even mention that? And 2, what would have been a more significant achievement? So, you start looking at those things side by side and you're like, it's apples and oranges, right? Because the World 9 ball tour is a self-sustaining, it's its own entity, which is fine. And I love everything about it, but it's got to be put in its own context.
I agree with you. And there's an interesting comment here from Crazy Brown Dog says PLP should be part of the Triple Crown if they're
No,
counting in invitationals. And it's like, at what point do you draw the line there, Mike? You know what I mean? Because it's kind of in the same category. I can
listen,
I can I can agree
listen,
with them.
no, I don't on that. The PLP is even further out than the World Pool Masters.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no. But I'm saying, like, if you're going to include it, well, then where does the line get drawn?
yeah, well,
Because
it's their ball. They can play with it however they want. So it's Matchroom's rules. They have the World Nine Ball Tour. They can determine what it is, whatever it is, and what it is going to be what it is in their world, and that's
So
fine.
if
I'm okay with that.
if they're saying that's the Triple Crown, then by default, then the UK Open wouldn't be a major, then, right? Because then they're not including that,
Are
or
we
the
in a major
European, or
conversations?
or the European wouldn't be a major. I'm just curious
or
because,
or
like,
Hanoi
or Hanoi wouldn't be
or
considered
any
part of
other
the
ones
Grand
that they
Slam,
add,
right?
other ones that
I
they
listen.
add.
I think Pool needs it because we do, but I don't think that was it. Now I'm with you also that doesn't take away from the fact that it was great, and what Federer's doing is amazing. Winning the
Yeah,
Whirlpool Masters is a big achievement. Ask Shane before he won the World Championship what the Whirlpool Masters meant to him. Ask David what the Whirlpool Masters means to him. Ask Kazakis what the Whirlpool Masters means to him. It's a great event, and to win it
great
has
event.
has a lot of significance, and especially now that it's more merit based versus like I'm going to cherry pick who my favorites are. I love it even more, Mike. And especially
Yeah,
them
no
throwing
doubt.
in these guys who like win these events, like out of nowhere, Robbie Capito type players. You know what I mean? Where they're throwing them in there. But yeah, I was like a little. It seemed like a reach. You know what I mean? That was the only part of it. But Federer was just outstanding, and we know he's been dominating. It's been that way for a year now, going back to last year's U.S. Open, where we thought, okay, here's his time. Here's where he's gonna finally get this monkey off his back. 2024 has been his year, obviously, but yeah, it was funny to hear that part of it because I'm with you in the sense that like what Francisco did dominating for that long over the matchroom stages, along with like outside there, right? The World 8 ball, and then knocking on the door of the World 10 ball. That was like epic, man. That was the one
That
where I was
was
like,
that
holy
was
cow.
that was just crazy. That would have been
Yeah.
he beats Eklund Kachi in that match. That's just a crazy story. That I don't think in pool could ever be repeated because these were three world championships that had everybody in them, right? All three of those. There wasn't
Yeah.
too many people missing from any of those three a couple of years ago. So
I know
um,
people forget. I think Watton Federer in the semifinals against
yeah,
Francisco in,
it
in
was
that
it
in,
was
that
it was
tournament
Federer.
in a great matchup, by the way.
Yeah, Federer, Francisco, Kachi, and can't remember who the Josh or not.
Yeah,
Yeah, Federer, Filler,
podium.
Kachi, and Francisco. Yeah, yeah. I mean that's a pretty sporty Final Four too.
Yeah. And especially like just given the way that and I don't want to be too victim of like the era that we're in right now, but I mean it's deeper than ever, I feel like, just having been watching pool for the last,
Yeah,
20 years and so it's listen, what Federer's doing is epic. I hope that the run can continue to kind of like chase at the heels of Francisco. You know what I mean? Because I think for me, Francisco still very much atop of what he accomplished a couple of years ago. But listen, this gets me even more pumped up for Hanoi. And
yeah.
if Federer can stay hungry, and it's tough to see anybody beating him right now, Mike. I'll be
Well,
honest with you.
he's going to stay hungry because he proved last year that Hanoi is like his new home base, right? So he's going to go there and he's going to feed off, his new millions of fans that are in Vietnam, and that's going to really that's going to keep him pretty wired up for the whole tournament. So yeah, he's not going to go in there in any kind of lull, that's for sure. So that'll be a great event.
Well, it's like I remember dissecting like those, that 18 months or so with Francisco and kind of waiting for reality to set in, and even still, he's extremely competitive in the rankings. Now he's not where he was a couple of years ago, obviously, but like with Federer, I'm kind of the opposite, where I'm like, who's going to slow him down versus, when is he going to come back to earth, Mike?
Yeah, well, it's anybody's guess. I mean, I'm still and Josh. It's not like Josh has been tanking, but I'm still waiting for Josh to make another run. Of a couple of tournaments. He won a couple of those tournaments last year at the end of the year that were not World Nine Ball Tour tournaments, so they don't really exist. So but he hasn't been a couple of years since he's done anything matchroom wise, right?
Well, man, I'm trying to think. I mean, last year he wins Qatar non-matchroom. Last year he wins what, China Open
He won. He
non-matchroom.
won either World Pool Masters or World or
World Cup of Pool.
World. Well, not World Cup Pool. I'm thinking.
Well, he did. Oh, he did win World Pool Masters last year. Yeah, he did.
Last year, 2 years ago.
I think it was last year. I'm pretty sure it was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's and like by his standards, it's like championship or bust because that's the standard that we hold Josh to,
That's right.
and rightfully so. But I love the idea of these two guys having like the newest, Shane Dennis kind of rivalry in a sense because they're both very young. You expect them to go deep in every single tournament. Their execution is at a really high level, and they're not slowing down any, Mike. And I mean, what is Federer, like 23, 24? And Josh is 20, 26,
Six,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's bigger to me. It's bigger than Shane and Dennis. I mean, you look at the big tournaments, U.S. Opens and international and the Matchroom Big Open tournaments, and realistically, Dennis didn't really do much in those. So Shane against Dennis, as far as talent and long races and the tournaments around the U.S., it was always a big thing. But you start looking at these big international, open events and all the Matchroom events, and to me, Filler and Federer is shaping up to be, Ali and Frazier for a while.
Well, there's a guy who was in the final that says, "Hold on a minute, I'm not on the lake just yet." Now he's getting there,
Yeah,
and it is, and believe me, it is getting there because Shane is not going to be playing pool, full time the next like 5 years. I'd guess. But I want to get your thoughts on SVB. Obviously, Mike, you've covered him for a long time. You've seen everything and anything when it comes to his career. Give me your thoughts on what the last 2 weeks was for Shane in terms of legacy, and just his overall picture, Mike.
I don't think he needed a whole hell of a lot more to cement his legacy. It's one of those things where his legacy is set, and everything he adds on just makes it more and more impressive in terms of. Now, listen, he's only 41. Niels made the semifinals. He's 47. So that to me is pretty astonishing. But for Shane to be at this level still on a monthly basis is pretty ridiculous. And I was, I did take issue. I think you were on with Collins. You were saying, this was his last chance at the U.S. Open. I don't know why. Why would you say that? He
Just from an odds standpoint, Mike. Obviously, it's not what I'm rooting for. But if I'm
no,
gonna,
I mean,
if I'm gonna bet every year whether or not he makes, if I'm gonna bet, let's say for the next 5 years, if I think he makes another U.S. Open final, I would hammer down on no because it's so difficult to get there, Mike. And I know Federer
it
went back
is,
to
but
back,
this
but
is not like I
it's tough
said.
to do.
This is not like Niels being in his 40s in a Hall of Famer and making the semifinal or final of the U.S. Open where he came
I
out of
know Shane
nowhere.
is very
Right?
much still in
Shane
form.
is still expected to be in the final 8, final 4, any tournament he goes to. So, does he have a chance to reach a final again? Yeah, as good a chance as anyone in the top 8.
When was the last time he was in a U.S. Open final, Mike? Before this year?
Last time he won.
How long? And when was that?
16, I think.
Well, that's my point. Then 8 years
No,
and 8 years gap.
well, I mean, how many U.S. Open finals has Francisco been in? How many U.S. Open, how many U.S. Open finals has Josh been in? How many U.S. So, I mean, you can look at the top 8 players and all it says is U.S. Open is a really hard tournament to reach the finals in. But it's not a reflection of Shane's losing an edge. It's a reflection.
No. And see, and I didn't mean it like that. I
So,
just think that
it's just a reflection of how hard it is to get there. So, you look at the last, 3 or 4 or 5 U.S. Open finals, not a lot of repeats in there.
no, and I mean, listen, that's why it was
So
extremely
what I'm
incredible.
saying is that his chances in the next year, to me, are no worse than anybody's except Josh and Federer. Chances are no worse than anybody. Who else has a better chance of reaching the U.S. Open final next year other than him?
Yeah, I mean, he goes into every tournament like a top 5 betting favorite for sure, every
So
single time.
that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. So, and I would love to see him win it next year when the first prize jumps up to 100. So,
I'm sure he would too, Mike. So
yeah,
knowing,
I think he let off the gas this year, knowing that
yeah,
next year was 100.
yeah, he was just playing the long game with it for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
He want to let Federer get a little comfortable before he steals one next year.
Well, it's hard to win
no,
2 in a row. So,
look, what's remarkable for me, and having seen Shane, I mentioned to start the show, how the last 30 days have been. I saw Shane in Sacramento, and that was a little over 30 days ago. I don't even know when it was, Mike. I guess
Sacramento, then Seattle.
6 weeks ago. So 6 weeks ago, something like that. And the guy's been nonstop since then, from Sacramento to Seattle to New Orleans to Fulda to Atlantic City. Oh no, to Louisville. To Atlantic City, and
Yeah.
now he's on his way to the Texas Open. So like, what Shane's doing is really just incredible, Mike, for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to like say that, he's hold on a second. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. Let me see. All right, let me turn this off if I can. This computer's just acting up here. Anyway, yeah, I don't know if good night. What's going on here? All right, I think we're good. Next year it makes Shane's run, like, it makes it worth watching. Not that it was any less this year, but like now it just continues to get the hopes up. You know what I mean? And that's what pool needs, are these great stories like an
Yeah.
SVB. And I think that the crowd's going to be better than ever next year. And maybe I'm being a little victim of the moment here, but these are
No,
the
I
type.
said these are the type of ties that lift boats. It's just like,
Yeah,
this was one of those things where everybody watching it had to be like, man, I want to check that out. So that's what a week like this does for the whole event. Like I said, it brings next year to this next level, and you try to hold on to that level for a number of years. So
he's been on this traveling streak, and it's not over yet. And he's still looking really fresh. He's still dominating, which is crazy. And he dominated the way, or he got to the final, beating Jason, beating Filler.
there wasn't
You know,
anybody playing better than him in Atlantic City, including
well,
Fed.
but that was with
He
that
had
was with him saying that I don't have a break. That was with him just like being a pool player, Mike, just going out there and firing. Because I remember, I think it was after I think it was after Jason. No. It was after Filler, and I'm talking with him, and I'm like, "How the hell did you do that?" And this is like after we got done interviewing or whatever, after Jason, and he was just like, "I was just swinging, I'm just firing at it, And so, where like a lot of players are trying to be very tactical when it comes to the break, and we know what a lot of
right.
these guys are extremely talented, like post break, like a Federer. But Shane's just out there being a kid, going out there and playing pool and putting balls in the hole. It's incredible what he was able to do. It was inspiring, and I'm pumped to see what the next. Like, I know he's taking a break after the Texas Open, but it gets me even more excited for Hanoi as well, Mike. Because can he go out there and get another championship under his belt? I think he can. And yeah, man, it's wild though, because he played and Federer played a lot of pool lately. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of pool
and
lately.
Federer talked about how stunned he was by how Shane could grind through all those hours and still be fresh, right? And then he goes
Yeah.
from there. Then he goes from there to Atlantic City and steamrolls the whole week. And it's just, it's you can say it's very cliche to say, well, this teach all the young players a lesson about how important it is to just keep practicing and practicing and practicing. No, I don't ever.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't ever expect anybody to put in the time and effort that Shane does, because it's like otherworldly. It's just on a level that no one else, even the top players who
Well, and this is just off of like what you guys can see, because I was in Louisville, I was in Sacramento, I was in Seattle, and seeing all the time that he's just there banging balls and breaking 10 ball, like before the Federer match, before each day of the Federer match. I mean, I'm talking like long hours of I'm just gonna practice the break. I mean, Mike,
yeah,
there were times when I'm in there in Sacramento and he's getting ready to play a WNT event and he's just banging the 10 ball break. Seattle banging the 10 ball break. And I don't mean for 30, 45 minutes. I'm talking for hours upon hours on end. Now, when you fast forward to being in Louisville and he's playing for, 12 to 14 hours a day, you don't see the other 6 hours that he put in there before on very little sleep, where he's just hammering the break. And when you say otherworldly, you're right. And listen, I don't know how he gets up like that. Like even Federer mentioned as much, even having 20 years being younger on Shane, it's like he's still just in awe, as we all are, of seeing Shane just be
yeah.
different. And
And
he
it's
is
like,
different.
I've heard people say in the past, he's like a Filipino. He's playing all the time. No, Filipinos are in action all the time. Shane, no one practices like Shane practices.
But we hadn't said that as much, Mike, over the last like 5+ years, because there were there
Well,
were there were ups and downs.
there'll be little
Yeah.
stretches where he takes up, but when he's ready to get in mode, he will put in the time. He's not, Oh, I
Well,
practiced. I practiced for 3 days before he came out here. It's not. It's not that. He's just like, yeah. Someone kind of said he's built different, and he is. He's just built different. That's why I
yeah,
don't expect anybody to repeat, the type of regimen that Shane puts himself under, because it's not reasonable to expect
yeah.
that.
Logically, it doesn't make sense to be 40 plus and be playing that amount of time and hitting gears at those times of the day, after X amount of days, living out of your suitcase and not eating well and living in a hotel and all these factors that are very much weighted because it's extremely difficult. And just kind of seeing these guys over the last few months, Mike, especially going back to like seeing what Federer does each year at the Derby, like that's special, but it's like, okay, he's in his early 20s, right? So like I get
Yeah,
it, but Shane is just different in that aspect. And look, it was crazy what he was able to do. I hope that's not the last time that we get to see him in a US Open final. It didn't take away from seeing him against Federer. It didn't take away from seeing him against Josh or Jason. And before you realize that, it's like, okay, we got a shot here. And as a sports fan, Mike, that's all you want, right? Like, you love stories. I love stories. Seeing Shane get the world championship off his back was great. But like, we love seeing this. And we may look back in a few years and say, hey, you know what? That was Federer's number one. And now here he is getting a chance to threaten, maybe reaching a 5 or 6 that may seem, unattainable right now. And these are the things that are awesome in pool. And there's so many things like it, Mike. And it was a really special time out there.
yeah. No, it had to be. Had to be.
What were some other storylines that you took away from the week that was, Mike? Because obviously a lot of Moscone Cup stuff, a lot of Reyes Cup stuff, a lot of
Yeah,
players making moves, things like that.
yeah. I thought um, Oscar had a good week. Um, it was good to see him. He took FSR out. It was great. Yeah, JJ getting in there, getting into Greece for, for 3-4
J-
matches. That's pretty strong stuff.
Jeremy
Um,
Jones was firing some people up this
yeah,
past week.
well, yeah, we won't go there. Um, but and then you look at a couple people who missed opportunity. I mean, how many tournaments are we going to go back to and say, boy, did Victor miss an opportunity here?
Yeah,
It's just another one, another one, another one, and he's still like in third on the list for the last spot. If he
and,
played
and,
any,
and has been.
and yeah, if he did any good in European Open or U.S. Open, or even one match better in World Championship, whatever, he's in control. So you got a couple of things like that. So yeah, there were storylines all over the place.
Yeah, no, that's what the U.S. Open brings, though. Is that you get to follow so much of it, and you realize like this has potential, that has potential, and then you see guys kind of whether they take steps back or steps forward. Michelle mentions Vitali. Vitali was a great story as well, and
Yeah,
still is, because I'm a believer in that dude's gear for sure.
yeah.
Not that I wasn't before, but I think there was a lot of question marks just seeing him on a bigger stage, and I think he kind of
Well,
he he,
he's
he
the
answered those
Federer of a
questions.
couple of years ago. He just hasn't had the chance to be on the bigger stage unless it was in his backyard.
Yeah.
And so he's limited in his opportunities, and we all want to see that change because we want to see him out there, if nothing else, to look at his hair.
Yeah, for sure, without a doubt. Although Robert
You're
Capito might
talking
have
about a
said
guy who
so
knows
himself.
a little something about hair.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it's like the Victor thing is interesting. How the Moscone Cup is going to shape up when it comes to the Europeans is really interesting. Josh getting that number 2 spot, I think, was huge. It makes me really curious to see where Mickey ends up because I know he locked up Reyes Cup spot, but can he get a spot on Team
Yeah,
Europe
well,
for
it's
December? It's
interesting
going to be
because
tough, Mike.
we talked about this a little bit before. When it's go time, and these guys got like Josh and David, whatever, have their backs against the wall, they go. They get up and go. It did not surprise me
And
at
that's when you
all.
may think that's when you may like count those guys out too, which is crazy, Mike, because you
I
may
never
you may
counted
you,
Josh out because I knew with
well,
the U.S.
Josh
Open,
maybe
Josh
not, but
had to
like
reach, but
David, Fran,
he
guys,
still had to
guys
reach
like that.
the semifinals to
Yeah.
assure himself that second spot. Josh still had to reach the semifinals. So and he's a heavy favorite to, not a favorite, but he's good odds to do that. But that's still a long way to go in the tournament when single elimination starts at 64. So Josh did what he had to do and got his spot, and pat on the
I
back
don't
for
think
doing
he
that.
had to do it though, Mike. I don't think that he had to because Josh knew, and we all know. Yeah, listen, Jason
Yeah,
and
but
Emily
believe me,
and whoever
Jason,
else can say whatever they
believe
want.
me, Jason was telling him it would be really nice if you got an automatic
Oh,
spot.
he saved Jason's ass
Yeah.
for sure. For I mean,
So
like
he knew
in
it.
that aspect,
He knew
because
it. But
yeah,
mostly Josh was playing
but
for
he
Josh.
also his spot was secure though, Mike, as well.
Yeah.
And so like he was very much safe. But the thing, and this is what's crazy, similar to Shane, is that both these guys need different things to like get them going and up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where I think Josh is more steady because he's younger, like as far as the hunger level and the
Yeah.
drive and just the competitive nature. Where Shane, like, he's got to figure out a way to get that chip on his shoulder to like really wake up and really get those like crazy eyes kind of going. I think Josh kind of being like not locked up just yet was really like, okay, hold on a minute. This is still my stage. This is my arena, And so he went out there and got that second spot at the very end, really, which was awesome. He came out of the last tournament, which was the U.S. Open, and I mean, kudos to him because Josh is great and he's playing. He's hitting a scarier gear right now, which is unreal.
I mean, you were around him, you saw him out there. Doesn't he seem like a different player than a couple of years ago? A different person than a couple of years ago. You
Well,
see
he's
him,
mature, Mike. I mean, he's getting
he's
old. I mean, like
definitely mature.
when I say he's getting older, I mean he's still 26, but like he's not a kid anymore. He's not like he acts very differently in a great way,
100%.
in a great way.
Yeah, he's making a lot more friends now than he used to, by his way he treats other players, way he treats his matches,
Yeah.
things he says after matches, things like that.
Well,
He's
I
always
think
been good.
because for a lot of years he was kind of similar to Shane in the aspect of being kind of introverted as well, Mike, and being that like loner type of guy, which a lot of these guys are because pool is very much like an individual sport, but like now he's warmer, he's got a wife, he's you know what I mean, he's had a lot of
It's
success, things
affected
like that.
it's affected his match play. I mean, he always said he was always a nice person. He was always,
Yeah.
very easy to
Just
talk
people
to.
never got to
But
see that part.
when the light switched on for match time, he went Josh mode, and it was in his actions, and his words, and his fist pumping, and actions after match. All that stuff was all part of it. And now that's kind of softened, and he has matured
Yeah.
from that level for sure.
I don't
And,
want him to mature from that level though, Mike. I mean, I want to see more of it. I do
you
because
know, believe me,
I
he'll
like
get
that part
pumped
of
up.
Josh's game.
He was no shrinking violet at the Moscone Cup last year.
Yeah, wow, that's for
So
sure.
so he still has that, but I think there's a little more understanding and a little more toned down, a little more respect about the way he treats matches and his opponents and the situation, whatever. But yeah, I want to see him be off the
Well,
rails too when the time calls for it.
that's the thing when the time calls for it, because I feel like he very much understands and respects the
Yeah,
moment. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like the moment of where we are, whether it's the tournament or how the match is weighted or what event it is. You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
he's not going to do that in the first round against like a you know what I mean, like a unranked player. You know what I mean? But when he knows when it's go time, he knows when like this one means something. And at the same time he can also give a ton of respect to the player. Like when I talked to him after the Shane matchup, this is a part that's great for me, Mike, because I don't know how you've ever handled this, but I don't like talking to players after they lose. Like I did it one time and it didn't go so
Come on,
well.
toughen up.
And,
Toughen
and
up.
this was one time where like I knew the guy and I was friends with the guy, and even then it didn't go that well. So I always try to leave them alone after they lose. Josh comes back after the Shane matchup. Yeah. And he was just like very much in awe of what Shane just did and very much giving him respect. And it was like after a few minutes of conversation where it was like, man, this is like if you don't get to see that side of him, you don't get to really appreciate like how much he just respects and values like the bigger picture of things. You know what I mean?
Well, it goes back to
He could still be like this and be passionate, but at the same time also understand like where greatness and legacy are as
well, you
well.
look at what Federer said about him after the World Pool Masters, after the final, when Josh had some really nice things to say to him at the end of that match. And Federer said, I wasn't expecting that out of Josh. I wasn't expecting him to come up and be a total jerk, but I wasn't expecting the response that I got from him. And and I think that that's the type of stuff we're seeing from Josh now. As far as filler into six
Well,
ball,
imagine
we're
though,
not
Mike. I mean,
going to talk about filler into six ball, are we?
oh, we can. I'm down to talk about it.
I don't.
That's
I don't see
yeah.
the point to it. I
But
think
but I'll tell you this real quick though on the last point you made because you brought up Hanoi. Imagine though, like, listen, Federer was in the final against Ko Ping Chung and
US Open.
loses to Got in the U.S. Open last year. Follows that up with if he didn't dog that 9 ball against Josh, he very well may have gone on to snap off Hanoi. And I know Albin and Jason stole the show and it was great to watch them, but like what Federer has been like creeping around doing before he just like busted through has been unreal. And so but I look, you want to talk about the six ball, we can talk about
No,
the six ball. We can talk
I
about
know because I
we
think
can talk about the bathroom breaks, we can talk about whatever, Mike. It's
I think that stuff's non-issues. I think that the filler six ball is a complete non-issue. And as far as the bathroom breaks, listen, I don't think that the bathroom breaks aren't the point to it to me. To me was, did BJ have a point that a 3.5 hour race to 10 is a little bit of a stretch?
not a little bit. It's a stretch.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, did he go about it the wrong way? Whatever. And I'm not going to bust down Jeremy, but it's a matchroom thing that they probably have to kind of figure out a way to work. I mean, they talked about it at the World Championship. They'd love to have referees and timers at every table, because if you're going to put guys on the TV table under a shot clock, you should really do it for everybody or none, one or the other. Then leaving it up to the interpretation of the referee as to whether or not they should use a shot clock or not is too arbitrary. I just think that they should find a way that a 3.5 hour match never happens.
I mean, it's difficult, but some players can take longer than others, and Jeremy's not the only one like in that category. Guys who are like,
yeah, they'll take advantage of it if it's there.
Well, I don't even think it's so much taking advantage, but like
some players do. I've seen.
No. Some players do. Some players do for sure, but I also think with some players that's just a part of like them. You know what I mean? Like that's just who they are. They go like their processes include things like that, and especially when you think about like, look, the Jeremy situation is the exception for me because he's not a full-time touring pro. You know what I mean? So like maybe I give it more of a pass because of the fact that like, I think about Jeremy like
he's never played fast in his life.
No. But what I mean though, Mike, is that
when he was a touring pro.
Yeah, but I'm saying like now though, like he's not. Yeah. You're not gonna see this like every tournament because he doesn't play every tournament. So like I'm not gonna be so exhausted from it, I guess, as I would others of guys who I see like consistently have issues throughout it. And like I mentioned when I did the show the other day, like when it came to BJ, like look, he very much had a point in the how that match went, and when it came to the pace of it. But the way he went about it was a whole other conversation, which was just like mind blowing to me.
Yeah. No, that's it's all in the delivery. That was really bad delivery. So it's
look, talking to someone who delivers horribly, all the time when it comes to things. So
allegedly, according to him, BJ did talk to a referee about it. The referee said he didn't think it was warranted. I don't know.
He did talk to the referee because when I walked up, I saw that, and I mentioned that when I did the podcast. When I walk up, Marcella's there standing by the TV, by that table, having a discussion with BJ. Now, I didn't hear the extent of the discussion. I overheard bits and pieces of it.
I would love to know the rationale for saying that a shot clock isn't warranted. I would love to know who that referee was and find out how he determined that 3 hours into this match that it wasn't time to pick up the pace.
Well, but see, Mike, you can't go and say like it's been too long, now hurry it up. Like if you're doing it in the moment, then I feel like, you know what, just don't bitch about it. Just go and say, hey, I want this guy on the clock, because there are ways to do that. And I've seen guys who were proactively out there campaigning to referees and saying, hey, this guy's a known issue, and so I'd like to put him on the clock. I remember we were at the Derby, Mike, and listen, I don't want to get into throwing some names out there. But if you know guys who have issues with moves and taking a long time, you know who I'm talking about. Okay. And it's late in the night, maybe like the second to last day versus Derby, and there's a notable American player who takes a sweet ass time every single time and who players can't stand, where before the matchup, the player who he's playing against is saying, hey, you guys know what's up. I know what's up. I want to get him on the clock. And guess what? Before the match even starts, there's a referee sitting there and doing this number. And I'm good with it, Mike, because if you have a reputation for it, then own it then, right? And you got to deal with those
So
consequences. But like the way you go about it, the delivery is the part that makes it like, come on, really?
it is. But do you think there's the same chance that a referee is going to put Jeremy Jones on the clock before a match starts, before he puts Jonathan Hennessy on the spot before
Wait,
the
wait,
match?
wait. Say that again. Say that again. What was
Do you
that, Mike?
think, do you think that a ref would be as harsh before the match started with a Jeremy Jones than he would with a Jonathan Hennessy, just by the reputation as being likable or not?
No, for sure. And you know it's not evenly weighted. And be like, listen, you have a point if you're BJ complaining about that, right?
Yeah,
But like you come across as a sore loser if you only complain about it that way after the fact. You know what I'm saying? So like there's just it's like you said, it's the delivery part of it. That's like, come on, man, And it, I the 3.5 hour match is extremely difficult. But like I said, we don't see that tournament in and tournament out because we just don't see Jeremy Jones play like that anymore. Like we don't see him play at all anymore. And I think the hardest thing was it really just soured what was a cool moment for Jeremy. Because he found himself, what was it, fighting for a final 16 spot or whatever, a final 32 spot. You know, and so that's where it's just like it's to see that afterwards, like, man, he could have just had his moment and everything would have been fine, and we would have still been talking about like how BJ's a few thousand away from getting in a number 3 spot and how Hanoi is going to be
we
waiting
know how
or where
people
he's going
are.
to be traveling to.
We know how people are right after a match. I mean, he was playing for some decent stakes, trying to get to a spot where he's trying to make Moscone. He's putting, he's going out
And he
there.
had a good spot to be in, Mike, because
Yeah, good
everything
spot to be in.
he
Now,
has a really good spot to be in.
if you go through that match and you say, geez, I talked to a referee, it still took 3.5 hours. They didn't do anything about it. I think I might be a little bit pissed after that too. Would I go off the rails on a post? I would hope not. But you can see where he was probably pretty aggravated after that was done.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I mean, like, look, to his credit,
Just
he
always
held
have
it.
someone proofread your bitches. If you're about ready to go off on social media, have someone look at it and tell you whether or not he thinks you should hit the send button. That's
Well,
a really good rule of thumb.
I mean, from my standpoint, I'm just saying go out and fire at it. You know what I mean? So, but if you're in charge of PR for said player, then for sure, you know what I mean. Or maybe take 24 hours and don't make such an emotional
24-hour rule is
post.
never a bad rule.
Of course, yeah, just breathe a little bit, And I know it meant a lot to him, and it was he put himself in a really good position based off of his play throughout the
Yeah,
entire year, and in this tournament as well, Mike. Because that's
yeah,
about all you can ask for if you're BJ. And like I said when I did the show the other day, no disrespect to Jeremy, but if I'm BJ, I'm loving that spot, and I know that pace of
yeah,
play can be exhausting, but like he had chances to put him away and didn't,
yeah.
including at the end. Now whether that was aggravation or because you're just tired or annoyed because the crowd's there and they're rooting for Jeremy and you got to fade all that. Like, I don't know what to say, Mike. I don't.
All right, let's move on.
Let's move on, Mike. All right, let's talk about the World Championship, the other World Championship that's coming up, Mike. World 8-ball. We mentioned, or we saw a couple of weeks ago where players joined together to say we're not playing WPA events. I was looking at the players list on there, Mike, and I still see Josh's name on there. I'm not sure if he's going to be playing, although I did see a
Someone
post
mentioned that the current list of players includes a lot of guys who weren't on the previous list who we don't think are playing. So it's going to be really interesting to see. To me, the greatest thing ever, if you want to thumb your nose at somebody, is that it appears that both Josh and Federer are there. and neither are playing. I love that.
At a very minimum, Josh is there because we saw it on the Killer Fellers post, right? That he
Oh
went and
no,
meet up
yeah,
with Sophia.
already saw Federer on the plane with Christina on their way over there.
Yeah, so it's that's kind of sad though, Mike. I mean, these are like 1 and 2 in the world here. Not to mention the guy who's the defending champion, who's on his way to Round Rock right now instead of going to defend a world championship, which would have been a great story as well. You know.
See, I don't. If Josh has said he's not playing, correct? On social media, he's not playing in a WPA event.
Well, not only did he not say in social media, but when I went to go have dinner the other night, and Josh was there, and I'm sitting right next to him, and the topic of WPA and all this stuff got brought up, and I'm not going to say everything that was said, obviously, but like part of it was, hey man, I'm exhausted by this, and I'm losing money because of this, you know. So like he made a decision that and by making that decision he was losing out financially, costing him thousands of dollars because of whether it was hotel or whatever it may have been. And I was like, man, really, you ain't even gonna get that back. And maybe that's the reason why he decided to go anyway. But I tell you,
Well,
if he is there and then not playing, and you know he'd be a favorite to get that 75,000. I mean, good grief, man. That's where it's just like people got to come together a little bit and figure out a way to hash this out because nobody wins
well,
by.
you hate to drag the sponsors into it, but this is a Predator sponsored World Championship, and their
So
guy is going to be there and not play.
I'm listening.
I just think that's well. If that's the case, then I would give a huge pat on the back to both Josh and Predator. Josh
and Predator,
because they're not putting a gun to his head. They're telling him, listen, we sponsor you, we give us whatever, but if this is a philosophical difference that you want to live with, we'll back you up on it. We'll let you do it. Okay, that's it's hard to do if you're a company paying somebody money and they show up and they're going to sit in the stands and watch their wife while the men are playing the other. I think that's commendable by them if they're letting him live his life, right?
All right, Mike. All right. I will agree with you there, but at the same time, the notable silence, I don't want to let them off the hook either, because like me and you have mentioned time after time doing this show, like if you're a leader, right? And this is something that Emily says all the time. She's just like, listen, why am I the only one out here, putting my face on an opinion or having a stance? You know what I mean? Where like going back to the WPA and all this shit, they're being silent except for a couple of Facebook posts or maybe a press release here or there. But like no one's willing to talk about it. And the same can be said when it comes to guys from Predator, Mike. You can't position yourself or proclaim yourself to be this leader and innovator. And while I think that there's silence when it comes to Josh, I guess you can get there, but it's like, really, can you get there? Because they could come out and really put pressure on the WPA if they had a public opinion about things.
Why would they have to come out public to put pressure on WPA? They're sponsoring the tournament. I guarantee they're talking to WPA behind closed doors, and I guarantee it's not a.
Oh, of course they are, and you know that.
So,
I know that.
So really, I don't think it's that they're required to make that part public. They're the money behind it. They're going to talk to the WPA, and if they don't like what they hear, at some point they're going to say, you know what, we're going to go do our own thing, and we don't need you either. So,
which we've heard before, Mike. I mean, we've heard before that there were times when they were on the outs, and I don't know how that relationship is now, but I know I've heard it over the last 9 months or so.
Yeah. So it's a matter of I don't, like I said, I don't think it's on them to make that part of the discussion public, because if they're going to influence WPA to change their mind, they're going to do it behind closed doors. They're not going to do it. And they're not going to force WPA's hand by going public with a bunch of bitching and whining. The players can do that. To me, in this situation, it's a little bit different. But yeah, I just think that if Josh and Federer are both sitting on the sideline in New Zealand while this World Championship's going on, that's a photograph I want to see.
Oh, just them in the stands while everything else is going on. I mean, look, I want to see them play. I would like to see them play in a final out there in New Zealand. I'd like to see Shane and Federer get a rematch in the World 8 Ball Championship, because how much will we be talking about that going into this event? And we know they would probably be there on the last day or the second to last day going into it. So these are the parts where, like, all these big pieces in this puzzle need to figure out a way, and where everyone can kind of coexist, because there is great opportunity for these players to pick up extra money, right, and play in a world championship and play in a prestigious event. I want to ask you this though, Mike, because
5 grand's nothing to sneeze at.
no, I mean, I think it's like what 30, 75 and 35, or 75 and
Yeah,
45.
it drops like a brick after that, but that's all
It
right.
does, yeah, it
So,
really does. But Carlo is an interesting conversation, because we saw all the players unite together because of the ACBS and the bands going on. I talked to Chua, who had a really passionate statement about it.
right.
Carlo playing in the World 8 Ball Championship, Mike. Where do you weigh that at?
Listen, we know Carlo chases money, and Carlo will find a way to rationalize whatever he wants to do. I think that he got a pass, even though he had supposedly been banned by the ACBS or APBF, whoever the hell the Asian group is now. He got a pass to play in this because a major sponsor of that event is one of Carlo's sponsors. And I think that they pressured them to allow Carlo to play. Now, Chua might have been in the same position and turned it down. I don't know. But, Carlo looked at that as a way to rationalize playing. I think that that's going to hurt Carlo in terms of, we talked about in terms of Reyes Cup.
Agreed.
I think it hurts Carlo a lot in terms of, the 3 automatic picks are in, so you ain't getting one of those. So it's a matter now of, we don't know who the captain's going to be, how much decision the captain's going to have on picking the final 2, whatever the case is. That hasn't even been discussed yet. But will Carlo even be on the table for them to consider at this point, if you're Matchroom?
Well, you would have picked him on a wild card, going into the year and even throughout the year. It's Carlo Biado, So I agree with you, whether it's official or unofficial, that you may think differently after seeing that. And I'm not saying, listen, I'm not gonna be mad at someone for going out there and trying to get some money. And Carlo, especially given that a lot of these players aren't gonna be there, is gonna be a really big favorite to win that event. You know, and he still would have been a top like 6 favorite going into the event, just because it's Carlo, right? We know what he can do. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen because of the Reyes Cup as well, Mike. Now, because
Yeah.
I think that there'll be a lot of people. I'll put it like this: I don't think I was the only one who was surprised to see his name on the list. And when I saw his Facebook post, that's whenever I was like, "Oh boy," because he's a big piece, right? He's a part of these guys who were affected, and so to him be playing out there when everybody else is kind of banding together over here.
He's going to
No
try
pun
to get
intended.
he's going to try to get away with playing both sides of the fence as long as he can. I mean, that's what he's going to do. So we'll just see at what point that he gets pushed back from one side or the other.
What were some other takeaways from the last couple of weeks, Mike, and what are you looking forward to in the next coming weeks?
Uh, I'm looking forward to some kind of announcement of where the Reyes Cup's going to be, who the captains are, and how they're going to make the picks. We're getting
Well, the three the 3 automatics are already done, right?
yeah, it's really mixed. They have no idea who their captain is or who's likely to be on the team with them. So, will they be a playing captain? Will it be a ceremonial captain? If it's a ceremonial captain, will he have 100% authority to make those last 2 picks, or will he be guided?
Oh,
Uh,
come on, Mike. Come on, Mike. Come on.
what do you think?
I want to know what you think. You
I
like
just asked you questions. You sound like you already had the answers. Let's go. Bring it.
no? I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, God, I don't know. Now we know what history has told us when it comes to these automatic picks, or not. Sorry,
Wild card picks.
the wild card picks. Do I think like the landscape has shifted somewhat? Kind of,
Well,
but I think all these things still like lingering in the air are very much going to be like you're noticing a lot of things without pointing it out that you're noticing a lot of things.
Right. And the thing is, the longer it goes, the more speculation there's going to be on, you know, who's pulling what strings, right? Were things
Yep.
done with a real purpose? Was the captain chosen now with a real purpose? Now you know who the other three are, you know, but it also changes a lot because with the Reyes Cup, appointing someone in Asia to make the final two picks is really interesting.
What do you mean, Mike?
Because you know that if you're going to appoint a playing captain, would you appoint a Taiwanese player who doesn't communication wise doesn't communicate as well with Filipinos or someone from Hong Kong? I don't know. I don't know what the barriers are to these guys mixing together for the first time. So
They all speak the same universal language. They point at the table where they want the cue ball. That's it. That's all they do. They look at each other. They say, "I'm point with the stick right there," and then they know, okay, I'm putting the cue ball right there.
Yeah,
it translates. Yeah, it's global, Mike.
So you want to be one of those guys in the first Reyes Cup picking who your other teammate's going to be?
Nope, you sure don't. I guarantee you don't want it because you're going to piss off some people. And but like, I think you can get a pass if and I hope that Efren's involved in some aspect when it comes to that. But we'll see. I don't know either, Mike. I didn't ask a whole lot, and that's kind of why I wish you would have been there as well. Obviously, I missed having dinner with you.
It just kind of, like I said, it makes it odd because of the Asian thing. Otherwise, I would say,
and we're so close to the
event already. We're going to give Jason the captain's spot and let him pick his fourth guy, and because we love Jason in these type of tournaments, and he's good, and so it's but that means that you have to take the same approach to the European team, and I think that the Asian team, and I think that becomes a little bit tough.
Well, yeah, I hope Jason's involved in some capacity because he's an anchor, and right now they don't have any anchors on that team outside of Josh. So when it comes to the Europeans, and the one thing you'll say when it comes to that matchup is the fact that the Europeans have more experience than the Asian players do. From a talent standpoint, you're not going to you can only argue but so much.
Right,
but
exactly.
being on that stage is different. But if you think about the three guys who are there for Europe right now, Kachi, Mickey, and Filler. Filler's the only one you can really say is like he's the guy who's anchoring this team right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's where it also makes who's making those decisions a lot more weighted. But you also know that like we got to have personality along with it. That's where Jason makes a ton of sense, and he's showing form right now as well. So like there's still a lot of question marks. It makes me look. I'm already looking forward to Hanoi. I'm looking forward to the Philippines. When I talked to Emily last week, she mentioned about going to Manila and ironing out. I don't know whether it was a venue or whatever, but she did bring up something along those lines. So hopefully in the coming weeks we'll have more clarity when it comes to
all they never announce stuff until the ink is dry, and so she's probably going back over there to finish contracts and put a signature on it, and at that point they'll announce it. Take a look at Team Europe and Team Asia. Who's on already? Yeah, Chua,
Mm-hmm.
and
Big Co.
Big Co. Okay, yep. Who needs to be on that team? Who are they missing?
Another Filipino needs to be on that team.
If you're picking to win, the best players.
Okay, Little Code needs to be on that. Little Code needs to be on that team.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, you know who your anchors are for Europe. You got a Jason, you got a Filler. You know who your anchors are for the US. You got a Shane, you got a Sky, you even have a Feder.
Well, that's where you would say Carlo. That's where you would say Carlo Biado would be the one because everyone looks up to him and respects him and understands his pedigree and his experience and his execution and his resume and all these things. And we know how he can. I
don't disagree with you at all. But if he hits a ball tomorrow, it ain't happening.
If he hits a ball tomorrow, I agree with you, Mike. It ain't going to happen. It's unfortunate, but I'm with you 100%. Thank God nobody watches this damn show because you know what? Like that would be some news there, but I don't think he gets on there either if he's playing in the WPA Predator World 8-Ball Championship. I don't. I really don't.
I agree.
And that's where, but like, the leadership thing is real, because
Huge.
if you're out there and you're drowning, and at some point you are going to be drowning, every player will tell you
You
that,
need
because
that point. You
you
need
got to
that.
like be able to like look to someone to save you and to bring you back down to earth and to tell you, hey, it's going to be all right, and to
Yeah.
pull them back together. They don't have
Right
that
now,
guy
you
right
look at
now.
team. Right now, you look at Team Asian, and I'll be like this.
Yeah, no, they ought to be doing this number, But that's where, listen, Carlo has got a lot of experience playing in big team events. He's got a lot of experience playing in big individual events. He was a part of that, whatever it was years ago when it was Taiwan versus the Philippines, as was Big Co. And so he's got that factor. I don't know. I don't know where they turn to, but like if I think about just the top
So
five of where you're at right now, I would put Little Cole on there. But then who's your five? Who's your number five guy?
I would probably, if you're looking for continuity, you're looking for another Filipino player, you're looking for some comfort level, I'd pick
You
around.
gotta have two Filipinos in the inaugural Reyes Cup, right?
James Aranis to play with Chua. If you're going to do a Francisco and David thing, you do Chua and Aranis.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, James played really good in the World Cup of pool with Chua, and I get it, but is that the guy you want to be out there, Mike?
What other
And I
Filipino you
love
picking?
James.
If Carlo can't go, what other Filipino are you picking ahead of him for comfort, for being in that arena before, for all that kind of stuff? Who are you going with?
I'm not bringing in Raga unless he makes a run, and
Yeah,
Hanoi, and I don't think he's a leader kind of guy anyway. Um, the Capito pick is interesting.
Capito's not a bad option either, Robbie. Yeah, sure.
And look, here's the thing. Chua seems to be maturing. So, like, can he be that leader? I really believe so, especially after talking with him recently. Like you lead by.
He's a great.
Um,
He's a
he's
great
a
story. He's a
he
great.
really really is. I mean, he really really he's transitioned from being like this young player figuring out his way to like being a top guy, and it's been great to see that transformation from him. When I
Yeah,
talked to him this week and seeing that maturity in him as a person and in his game, it was really inspiring, Mike. And I love guys who like send messages and all this shit. And when it came to him being open to talking about things vocally, like I was even more like, man, I want to root for that guy. And he's the guy who can be a leader in that aspect. But you still want somebody else. You really do. And I don't know who that guy is. I don't think it's going to be Dennis because he doesn't play in WNT events enough. I don't think it'll be Raga unless something maybe happens in Hanoi.
what
I
about Lee
guess
Van? We're getting a lot of Lee Van mentions in there.
well, you can't argue. Lee Van's a monster,
He
you know?
is.
Lee Van's a monster. But, there's a lot of like young Filipino players who, I mean, they're not leaders right now, but, they got a pretty strong game, Mike.
Well, yeah,
They got a really.
a couple years. This year, I'm not taking Bernie Regulari. I'm not taking Anton Raga. I'm not this year. No.
So who would you? So you're just saying put
I
James
would
on
say,
there.
to me, it would be. I like three suggestions. I like Aranis. I like Capito, and I like Lee Van. One of those
I
three.
think.
I could live
Look,
with any of those three.
I think if those are my options, I'm going Capito first, just because of the year that he's had this year, and more importantly, the way that he handled pressure gives me a lot of optimism with Robbie, because seeing him in that chair and be so steady and just pure and just breathing and not getting like caught up in the moment, those are things that are going to serve you well on that stage you're about to head into. Because it's going to be intense, it's going to be deep, and he's got Filipino blood in him, so you can justify it that way as well. But I think it's got to be a Filipino, Mike, as the five or as a four, depending on where you're at. I really do.
Yeah. Well, I kind of I would expect. Depends on what they
But
do.
let me ask you this though, Mike. If that's the case, well, you got to have Vietnam in there too, though, right? So like someone from Vietnam, from a matchroom standpoint, has to be a part of that team, doesn't it?
I don't think so.
You don't think so,
I
Mike?
don't.
You know how big that
I
market
don't
is, and
think
everyone's fighting for it right now.
I don't think they. I don't think you forced that issue. With the last two picks, and again, a lot of it depends on whether the captain's a playing captain or not. Makes a huge difference. If the captain's a playing captain, you only got one pick left.
I
And
wouldn't mind.
I do
I
like
wouldn't
the
be
idea
upset with
of.
Wong.
I like the idea of two Filipinos and the two Cole brothers, as far as comfort level together, playing together, pairing up, things like that. That to me makes sense. So you'd have two
I don't
Taiwan.
want to live little. I don't want to leave little Ko off that team.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
also need a Filipino on that team,
Right.
but
So
I can't. If I'm weighing everything, I think little Ko might be the first one out, and I put Vietnam in there just to get those eyes on that matchup even more because from a viewership standpoint, it's going to be through the roof if you get a Vietnamese player on there, Mike. You can't argue that. You know how massive those numbers are.
yeah, I know how massive the numbers are. Then just handpick the team.
Well, it's a exhibition at the end of the day, you know, and you want to have a product that's going to be attractive for the future, so from that standpoint I wouldn't be upset with it. And plus the dude can play. He can play against big guys. Now we ain't ever seen him in something like that before,
Is he
but
gonna play
like
Hanoi?
I don't know. He
Didn't
wasn't
last.
there last year.
Yeah, got scared
heart
out last
heart
year.
Heartbreakingly he sat out that tournament. You knew he wanted to play, and I was there last year seeing like, and you saw him just disappear in that US Open last year when he was like full steam ahead because of all the stresses going on with everything that was hanging over his head. That part of it was real unfortunate. And like you, listen, you can say all the right things, and the show's going to go on, and Hanoi is going to be special, but like you want to see the best guys there, especially from like the home turf, Mike. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right, let's talk Moscone Cup.
All right, you go ahead. Where are we going with this?
Well, I sent you that little chart of who has
Oh
to do
yeah,
what.
yeah. My computer's giving me issue though, Mike. Can we talk? Yeah. Because
Okay.
the
So
screenshot.
so Team Europe.
Okay.
Mickey Krause
Okay.
has a little less than a $6,000 lead on David Elkay.
Okay.
So if Mickey Krause doesn't win a match in Hanoi, David needs to make the semifinals. Semifinals is worth $9,500. Quarterfinals only worth $6,000. It would get him there, but all Mickey Krause would have to do is cash.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I mean,
Which would be a massive favor to do.
Last 64 is 1,000. Last 96 is 500, something like that. That would be enough, right?
Yeah.
So if you go beyond that,
is he playing the Battle of the Bull?
Well, that's the thing. Here's all these tournaments coming up between now and then, these ranking tournaments where you can pick up another $3,000, $2,000, $4,000, whatever it is.
Right now, it's gonna make a difference, Mike. Right now, it's gonna be a lot. I don't think he's on. I don't know if he's on Seattle players list or not.
Who's that?
I know it's full already. Mickey.
Okay, you got Pennsylvania. You got Battle of the Bull. Then you have the one in Shanghai, and you've got the Perry in Vietnam right before the big Hanoi Open. Everybody's going to be in that. It's going to be like a mini Hanoi Open.
It's going to be a major, right, Mike? Just say it one time. It's going to be a major, right?
What, Perry Open 9-ball?
Not the Perry Open, Mike. I'm talking about the damn Hanoi Open.
It's going to be big.
We're gonna. Oh, come on, Mike. You know that's
going to be real.
It's the next U.S. Open, Mike. It's the next U.S. Open.
You said before that the European Open and the UK Open aren't majors if based on this Triple Crown thing. So how can Hanoi? The money's no different.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Did.
That's what was. No, I'm not. I think it's a great. I said it was great, but I don't think give me Hanoi, World Championship, and U.S. Open as my three to get a Triple Crown. Those would be the three that I would say. Why
Hanoi over European or UK? Same money, same field.
It's different. It just it passes the eye test, Mike.
Horrible reason.
It's no. Listen,
horrible reason to make
maybe, but I'm gonna keep that stance anyway, Mike. It may be a horrible reason to justify it, but you saw how special that arena was, Mike. And I think you would bet if you were gonna say which event's gonna grow over the next few years more than others, you'd put your money on that one. I know you would. I would too.
Well, if you're gonna call something a major, you better have a guarantee it's gonna be around for 10 to 20 years. So you know that with the U.S. Open.
We don't know if it's going to be around for the next 2 months, Mike. I mean, let's be real about it. We don't.
So you can't just start throwing these in there because it had a good year.
No, I am. I'm gonna go down with the ship there, Mike. That's what I would say would be my triple crown personally. But anyway, you were saying, Mike.
So anybody beyond that, Victor, he has to get to the finals.
Victor, I love you, guy. I mean,
Okay.
I want to see you get there, but
PS, Jason, and FSR not only have to win the event, but they would need to get some ranking money as well between now and then. Okay, so you're pretty much looking at Mickey, David, Victor, right? And really, you're probably looking at David. Can he?
Okay.
David's got to reach the semis, and Mickey has to bomb out before 96. So every time Mickey advances around, all of a sudden
David's got that much more to make up.
Yeah, David would have to reach the final.
Yeah.
If Mickey reached the last 32. If Mickey reached the last 32, David would have to reach the final match. Right?
I would say Mickey's got a better chance of getting 32 than David does getting in the finals. And I know that's like Captain Obvious over here, but
yeah.
But like the thing is, David is always that guy who like you don't give enough credit to, and then he's still around and he's still knocking on the door and he's still steady.
When he knows his go time, he gets
and it's go time, and he's still doing very well. Look at Atlantic City.
It's going to be go time in Vietnam, and so we've seen David do that in the past. And really, he was one match away from the semifinal. It was him against Josh to see who was going to pass Mickey.
You think he's got a better chance of being an automatic versus a wild card?
David?
Yep.
Who would Jason pick as his wild card? I suppose David's a pretty good option. I don't see, either him or FSR. I don't see Albin this year at all. And you'd have to go with David over FSR based on this year. So I think David has a good shot of being.
It's an interesting conversation, though, ain't it?
Wild card. Now, here's the thing: is Mickey a wild card if David passes him for the automatic spot?
No, but he should be. He should be. He absolutely should be, but he's not.
Do you think
because
Jason,
you know that
scared at that point?
You know that unwritten rule, Mike. You don't pick rookies for a wild card. If you want to get in that group, you got to earn your way. Now, once you earn your way, then you're part of the conversation. It's a whole different story. But your first year, you got to earn it. I think Mickey should. Personally, I do. And I think he's had enough of a good year to justify it. Even if he disappeared in Hanoi or the next 6 weeks, I still would think that.
Yeah. Okay. I agree.
But I think the David one is going to be interesting. I think Jason's got a much, like, you always got the safety net if you're Jason of Albin or of, I guess, even now of Francisco, because, and especially Albin, because Albin is proven. Alvin has been there. He's done that. He's steady. He's experienced. He can come big when you need him to. He can be a leader, and you can trust Albin in that environment. Those intangibles, Mike, are massive in that stage, and Jason knows that. But
yeah, I think that that would really make me scratch my head. Would really make me scratch my head.
So you'd put like Pius, Fran, David before Albin as a wild card?
Fran or David for sure over Albin.
If you're just going off the year, you're going to pick David if you're just going off the year, right?
Yeah.
But is that going to be the case, though?
Yeah. If he's having the year he's having, I don't know how much I'd lean on that. I don't know. It just
he never really gets like the respect that he deserves, and he's always around, And I've been victim of that too, where you kind of count him out, and then he's still there. It's like he's. Listen, last year in June, July is whenever he made his move to get that number 2 spot, right behind Francisco. He just had a hell of a tournament here at the U.S. Open, while already being super steady throughout the entire year, and he's got experience. Like you can figure out a lot of ways to justify it, but then you still think, is Jason going to pick him over some of these other guys? I don't know, Mike. I really don't.
Yeah.
we all saw like how everything got turned on its head though in Hanoi last year,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because Albin was not part of the conversation before that tournament last year. Can there be another player like that?
Well, I mean, you'd have to win. You'd have to. Well, even if you win the thing, you're not unless you're,
Look at this comment here, Mike.
you know.
Moritz, Bosch, Alexa, Pius,
Yeah, well, they would all.
Jackie says Vitali.
They would have to. Is Vitaly eligible?
I don't think so.
You can't.
I don't think so. No, because he's not a. I don't think he's a top 100 pro.
But again, guys like Pius, all those guys, they would have to win the tournament just to get a wild card.
Pius had a pretty good year going back to Derby, Mike. Pius got a great break.
But you would have to win the tournament. He still wouldn't get the automatic spot. So you're picking him on a wild card based on the one win.
Are you picking him on a wild card?
Sorry?
Are you picking him on a wild card?
Based on the one win? If he wins that? You would think you'd have to pick someone who won a tournament, but then the same thing would then it goes against what you said about Mickey if Mickey doesn't get the automatic spot.
Yeah, because I just think Mickey's the exception right now. And I think he has earned it. And Mickey's also a great story.
You're saying he wouldn't get picked even though he won a tournament this year.
Well, I would pick him. Do I think he's going to get picked? No. There's a difference, Mike.
So it would be the same thing if Pius wins in Hanoi. You wouldn't pick him?
No. I think if Pius wins in Hanoi, the photo finish, son. Go give him hell. Let's capitalize on momentum. Okay. And listen, he was around. People forget he forced the second set with Josh in January.
What makes his argument any different than Mickey's?
Well, look at Albin last year, though, Mike. Look at what happened with Albin last year.
Albin was a known winner, known quantity. If Pius wins his first tournament, you would pick him as a wild card. When Mickey won his first tournament,
Mike, it's the Moscone Cup. Some shit just don't make sense, And,
I think he should be the captain for Team Asia.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Listen, it's so hard because they are very deep, and you can rationalize it a lot of different ways. And this is where I think like Josh making it in on number 2 is really big for Jason, because he will always have that safety net. The problem is that you have these guys who are coming behind. I don't think Victor gets in on a wild card. I don't. I think he's got to earn his way because there's still a lot of question marks when it comes to whether the pressure's really high, what you can get out of the kid. But a guy like David, I don't know. I don't know. It makes Hanoi really interesting, Mike.
Really interesting. You said, there's going to be a lot of guys there looking at who's got the easier road or who's got the tougher road, who's playing softies, who draws someone tough in the round of 64. All of a sudden a favorite loses early and gets in the back door of the round of 64, like Josh, and all of a sudden he draws Mickey in the round. It's like, oh shit.
I'll tell you that.
So then on the American side's
real interesting as well, Mike.
Well, Oscar's got to reach the semifinals to pass Tyler. And anybody else needs the finals.
Well, I think Oscar's going to have a full schedule leading into Hanoi, where I think that's where
he's going to play in all these other ones and pick up. But I think Tyler's going to play.
Well, there's no guarantee he's going to pick up, but like he's going to be swinging. The same thing goes for Tyler as well. The conversation is if who's going to edge out in that Tyler versus Oscar conversation, because we've seen a lot online, whether it was on Federer's podcast or things that we've been hearing about Billy being a part of the conversation for Team USA, Mike, and the likelihood of him being in on a captain's pick, given that friendship with Sky.
Is Billy going to Hanoi?
You'd have to, of course. If he doesn't, forget about it.
So you think that there's a chance that one of the guys, Tyler or Oscar, doesn't make the
team? I think that's likely, yes. Well, whether I agree is different, but
likely or just possible.
Say that again.
Likely or just possible.
You're good, Pinozzo. You're good, buddy. I would say Likely, I
Yeah,
would say likely, because that's been what we've
that
been
would
hearing.
that would lead, going forward. That would lead to some salty American players.
That's nothing new. You
Well,
know,
I
that's
think
nothing
I
new.
think this
And
would
and
sting. I think this would sting more than most years.
I'll call Oscar right now and we can ask him. I
No,
know
no,
I know I know what he's gonna say.
I do. I know what he's going to say too,
Yeah.
uh, and I think Tyler would probably say the same thing. But
Yeah, but he hadn't been through it as much as Oscar has in terms of that.
yeah,
Getting like the short,
he's gotten on the team more often than he hasn't, and
but
he was
that's what I'm saying. Like getting the short end of that popularity contest.
so.
So
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. But we'll see. I mean, there's three ranking
who,
tournaments
who do you
in
think
the
should be
U.S.
the five for? Who do you think should be the five for Team USA right now?
right now.
Right now,
Right now, the top three, Tyler and Oscar.
I agree 100.
I
Percent
think that they've earned it. I get the whole Billy argument from the standpoint, if you talk to European players last year at Moscone Cup, which I did, they all said Team USA needed someone like Billy Thorpe. That's what they were lacking. It was funny because they weren't even talking about lacking actually pocketing balls. They were lacking this guy who was going to help hold the team together and rally the troops and all that kind of stuff. So I get that argument, but I just think this year, given
if that's the case, Mike, if that's the case, then everyone fork over some change, fly Billy out to the Moscone Cup in Florida, and put him in there as an acting co-captain, and let him be that moral support that Team USA plays. I'll say it. I'll say it. If you're looking at just on play, no, he shouldn't be part of the conversation. He shouldn't. It's unfortunate, but disappearing in the U.S. Open was really big. Especially when you were a part of the conversation when I don't think you really like your play warrants being part of the conversation. Look at just on prize funds alone, right? Like not even talking about where you're gonna like what you hear, right? And you hear it and I hear it, and if you're around, you hear it, right? We saw it on other platforms as well. But like the Tyler and Oscar play wise, they should be on the team. And I think even if one leaps the other one, they should be on the team. Because even if Oscar were to be on three, I would still like Tyler because I like his steadiness out there. I think his fundamentals serve him well out there. I don't think that he everyone can harp on that four railer with Josh, but Tyler was about as steady as you can ask for, all things considered. He was in a lose-lose situation, being out there and throwing to the dogs, playing filler in whatever it was in the last time they were in the USA. Right, that was a tough spot to be in. But like, if you're looking at how guys have played and you want your best five guys out there, look, if you want someone to be that like emotional,
would
let's
they
go get it
would they,
kind of guy, then
would they
fly him
let
out
Billy
there and let him be on the sideline.
would they let him be in the locker room? Because having
Yeah,
him
I
on the
think so.
sideline
I
means
think so.
you
It's a
know
great story. Why
we
wouldn't
saw
you?
him in
Yeah.
we saw him in Vegas 2 years ago, and it was that moral support, but that's not what they needed. you know, the overalls and the belt loop of beers. But would they let him dress up and be an actual co-captain?
Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't. If it's not coming out of pocket from Matchroom, I don't see why they wouldn't, you
Yeah,
know? Because it would be a cool storyline. And he does have a lot of personality, and he does have a lot of he does have a lot of spirit, and can lift guys up, and can be that like that firecracker, But at the end of the day, you got to go out there and make some balls, you know.
yeah.
Jason's got an interesting comment on there. He says Billy's better than Tyler. Long race, Tyler would rob Billy.
A race to
Billy
five.
Billy's better for the team atmosphere. I think that's where like you got to debate things, But if Tyler makes it in on automatic, then the conversation is going to be okay, because Sky's going to get one of the captains picked, obviously, because they've been saying that. But then it's a choice between Oscar and Billy, And
Wow, that's a
listen,
tough spot. That's a really tough spot.
it's the
If you're
conversation that's being had though all over the place right now, Mike. It really is. And I think that if you go back and look at it's it's tough because of the outside of the table things. But I really believe, and it's not just me saying this as Oscar's friend, I really believe that if you just looked at play on the table right now, it's not that hard of a conversation to be had. It may not be the most popular one, but it's not that tough of a conversation to have, you know.
Yeah.
But this is where what happened last week means a lot. And oh, by the way, you got a guy in BJ who is sitting at number 5, who is very much within striking distance. And I know we have opinions about him, but at the end of the day, listen, you can go out there and play your way onto the team with a couple of good tournaments here in the U.S., followed by Vietnam. And
Yeah,
it's
you have
still
to do
it's.
really well in a couple tournaments in the U.S. and then reach the semifinals.
But we've seen last year where things got turned on its head.
Yeah,
So I think that it's more likely that things kind of stay the course where it is right now. But I also appreciate the chaos and
this year was total chaos. You and I were speculating on
yes,
who's almost a
yes,
lot and who's this and who's that, and it got turned upside down. So yeah,
it's good. It's gonna happen again, Mike. I guarantee you, because it's never anticlimactic this time of year,
yeah,
and like just even discussing it gets me fired up for all these events that are coming up. And like I wouldn't have gotten fired up about the Seattle Open, back in March. You know what I'm saying?
no,
But like
wait until
that,
I mean, by the time we hit the Battle of the Bull, that thing's going to be like, you know,
yes.
it's going to
Well,
have.
that's when you're watching the bracket, right? That's when you're watching who
Well,
surpasses who. And I think that right now, listen, wins and losses mean a huge mean a lot, right? Like who you get wins over, I feel like win means a lot right now, especially given where you're at in the poll right now. So you could have these like pseudo moral victories without, maybe making a leap here or a leap there, because you're gonna have more ammunition to have an argument about it. Does that make sense, Mike?
yeah, yeah.
No. Anyway, we never did an hour and a half long show, Mike. I don't know what the hell we're doing here. It's a pretty good welcome back though.
It is. It is. You were in dead punch, man. You were gone for like a month, and you come back and
Well, I took a pretty decent break off there over the last few months, and it's been like ups and downs in other aspects of life. But I was real excited to go on this most recent trip because um, I felt like it had a really good chance to have some good content and get some good stuff with players, and
you were like,
like, but like I didn't expect it to be as awesome as it was. And that's like me being burnt out and exhausted from this year, right? Because I've had like long 2-3 week stretches before, but like this thing got me real pumped up for what's coming. And it got me really excited to be able to see some history. What Federer did out there was incredible. I want to see him parlay that into something even better, right? Like I think he's got the ability to smash that Francisco conversation because of where I think his ceiling is. But like it starts with the World Pool Masters. It starts with the World Championship. It starts with the US Open, which is incredibly difficult to do. But Hanoi is going to be great. We know how important that event's going to be
yeah,
for him. And Josh, all these things. There's so many guys that you can just pick apart and want to see, and we're going to get the opportunity to live online, or if you're there in person. I'm going to try to make it out to Hanoi. I'm going to try to go out there to the Philippines. We'll see how that works out. I want to give a big shout out to all the sponsors. You see them on there, also on the page, who helped support the last month as well. We couldn't have done it without them. I'm glad to be home for at least a couple of weeks, but I'm fired up to see some more pool, Mike. I am.
can we talk again after the Seattle Open?
Oh, before, during, and after. Well, I'm going to do some stuff on the women's World 9 ball. I'm still going to want to do some stuff on the World 8 ball just because I'm a sicko and I love pool. And, I'm
Yeah.
going to be following to some extent. And I'm curious to see who's actually out there and playing. And so, yeah, I mean, I want to.
Posted before that they thought only Oscar and Tyler were WMT guys out there. So I don't know if that means BJ didn't go out to Seattle, if he's just going to do Pennsylvania and the Bull.
I don't know. I mean, it's obviously opposite sides of the country for him. But like outside of the bullshit online, I would hope that he would compete out there because you're still within swinging distance, right? So like you didn't go all year long just to kind of
It's
pack it up
money.
now.
It's money. He's got two near his house that he can play in for sure. And then I
Yeah.
would assume he's going to Hanoi, play in the Perry Open before the Hanoi Open. And Hanoi Open, that'd be 4 shots. That's pretty good. And a lot of people jumped all over BJ, and now BJ's got no chance of being on the team, as because of his attitude, whatever. But I give that guy a ton of respect for deciding last year that he was going to go ahead and take a swing at it. And he's been everywhere. I mean, he was in freaking Saudi Arabia. How many people thought they were going to see BJ Usry in Saudi Arabia anytime in the near future? So I give him all the credit in the world for putting up. He doesn't have the big sponsor packages that a lot of these other guys have, the higher profile. He's going out there and he's taking his cuts, and a lot of respect to him for that.
I ain't gonna argue with you on any of those points, Mike. You're absolutely right. You know, and look, you can be that Cinderella story for this year. It's gonna happen because it always happens. So could that be BJ? For sure, it can. You
Yeah,
know, and but like anything else, you got to go out there and play. The table's gonna do more of the talking than anything else, and we'll see where the chips fall at the end of it. So
yeah.
anyhow, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. I'm gonna try to do more shows this week as well, but this was a hell of a start, man. 90 minutes. So um, yeah. Anyhow, thanks
Good
everybody,
thing
and
I'm getting paid by the hour.
yeah, no kidding. Mike, you got anything else before we get out of here?
No, I pretty much emptied it.